In our first reading today, it said, "I did not shield myself from buffets and spitting." In an earlier reading of that, I thought it said, "I did not shield myself from buffets and spitting." And I thought, oh, is the buffet open again? I thought those went away with COVID. And actually, I have a hiking trip coming up at the end of the month, and I don't know if there's any other thru hikers out there, but the more weight that I'm carrying on my back or on myself, the harder the hike gets to be. So I'm going to have to shield my face from buffets for the next few weeks at least. If someone were to follow you around for 3 days and then had to fill out a questionnaire, what would they see? If the top question on the questionnaire is, who does this person follow? Or who is their teacher? What kind of answers do you think that the surveyor would give about you? Would you be identified as a student of fashion, wanting to look good? My brother-in-law once figured out that my older niece, who's 17 now, takes approximately 15,000 selfies a month, just based on Snapchat things. And those are only the ones that she sends to someone, not the ones that she deletes and tries again. After 3 days of following you, would someone say that you are a disciple of a particular party or ideology? Would you be labeled as a Democrat, a Republican, a political pundit? If the 3 days happened to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, would you be labeled as a football fan? Would people identify you by your sports participation or watching or rooting or cheering? After 3 days of observation, would you be identified as a disciple of Jesus Christ? Some have said that the question in today's gospel is the most important question that is asked in all of the scriptures. Who do you say that I am? Now, I'm sure if walking out of here today, if another polling group was there and said, "Excuse me, who do you say that Jesus is?" you would say that he is the Christ, the Son of God. God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father. Through him all things were made. For us and for our salvation he came down from heaven, and so forth. You would piously bow your head at that point. However, when Jesus asked the question, "Who do you say that I am?" he's not simply looking for an oral response. It's one thing to say something, it's another thing to do it. We look elsewhere in the parables of our Lord. There were 2 sons, and the father said to one of them, "Go work in my garden." And the elder son said, "Yes, I will go work in your garden." Actually, I think it was a vineyard, whatever. "Go work in my agricultural setup over there." And the first one says yes, and then he turns around and goes about his own pursuits. The second one says to his father, "No, I will not." But then he goes and does it. Who really did the will of the Father? The one who says it or the one who does it? Likewise, who do you say that I am? Anyone could get up and say the creed. Not that it isn't important. We wouldn't do it Sunday after Sunday, holy day after holy day, if the creed wasn't important. It is important to profess with our lips. Profession on the lips leads to belief in the heart. Belief in the heart leads to salvation, so says St. Paul. Do we live our lives as disciples of Jesus? Do we live our lives professing not simply with our words, but also with our actions, that we are truly followers? I was listening to a podcast this week from America Media, the Jesuits, and they were interviewing a rather famous Franciscan priest, a teacher, and he said that there are many people who show up to Mass on Sunday but are very far away from the Catholic faith. And then there's other people who go out and live it day in and day out but never show up at Mass on Sunday, or may not even call themselves Catholics, or may be the farthest people from the truth. But they live it. So I ask you, not the question of today's gospel, who do you say that the Son of Man is? But I'd ask you instead, what does it look like to follow Jesus? Is it rosary beads in hand, thick calluses on our knees? Is that it? Or does it look a little bit more like what we see in the letter of St. James today? You show me your faith without works, and I will show you the faith that underlies my works. But does to follow Jesus mean that we are at the South Jersey Food Bank 3 days a week, working and setting things up and delivering meals to the poor and not sleeping so that we can hand out blankets or food or hand warmers to those in Camden? Is that what saintliness looks like? I would prefer to not give you a model of holiness to follow. I would rather that you ask yourself, what does it look like? What does it look like? What does it mean to take up your cross and follow after? For some saints, this has meant truly denying themselves all sorts of things. Some of the great spiritual athletes of the 4th century, St. Simon Stylites, who lived on top of a pillar and cut himself off from the world. Is that holiness? Is physically washing the feet of the poor and the leper and the blind and the lame, is that holiness? Is raising mind and heart to God at every moment, listening for the dictates of the Spirit, is that holiness? My friends, I find that holiness is rather elusive. That if we read the biographies of the saints, some of them do things that are absolutely in contradiction to one another. So what is it? Does it matter? Sometimes, I believe, we rebel against holiness without even meaning to do so, because we're afraid that it is going to cost us something. This can be for one of two reasons. Either we have a bad idea of what holiness looks like. I don't want to sit in church every day for 6.5 hours, so I'm going to push it away from me. Or we're afraid that we're going to lose something. At first, Peter comes off very nicely. God, Lord, forbid it that you will have to suffer. Lord, forbid that you will be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed. Was Peter saying this out of compassion for Jesus, or was Peter saying this because he's really saying, God forbid that I am going to be rejected by the chief priests and the scribes and the elders and be killed? Lord, don't put that as a condition of discipleship. I don't want to do that. Homework for the week. What does it mean to follow Jesus? What does it mean that whoever wishes to come after Jesus must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow him? For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it. What does that mean?